our mics are not working. We're working on fixing them. So I'm going to try and project as loud as possible. You just bear with us while they correct it. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. This is the meeting to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. The role of the committee is to review the proposals that are before it, consider the evidence provided, and make a decision based on the forecast established by the Planning Act. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed and available for future viewing in the town's live stream page at oakville.ca/live. People attending this committee meeting are to be courteous and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and others in attendance. We ask that some of your devices be switched off at this time as they need to clear their system and at minimum have them silent. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. All persons wishing to address the committee are requested to provide their name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to all speakers. Any submission beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the chair. Any materials presented to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Persons seeking a deferral or withdrawal of an application will be invited to do so at the onset of the meeting. If a request for deferral is granted, it is the responsibility of the applicant to contact the Secretary Treasurer regarding the scheduling of a new hearing date. As a request of the committee, the applicant may be asked to provide a brief presentation and answer any questions that may arise. If the applicant has any concerns with the recommendations and proposed conditions found within the staff report, this will be the time to advise the committee. All persons who wish to support or oppose the application will then be given an opportunity to speak to the committee. In the interest of efficiency, groups sharing the same view are asked to select a spokesperson, and individual speakers are asked not to cover the same points as those have already been spoken. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to respond to comments made by parties and answer any additional questions. Thank you. At this time, I will take requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mrs. Chair and members of committee and staff. My name is Azmin Khosravi from 603 Argus Road, Care Engineering, representing the owner at the 475 third line. And I would like to make a referral request.
Is there anyone here in attendance for application CV090-2019 at 475 third line? I see none. Okay. Members, Mr. Frye wants to have a deferral to discuss further with town staff. All those in support of the
Test 1, 2, test.
Okay. Your application has been deferred. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We'll see the Secretary Treasurer for the next available date.
Certainly will do. Thank you.
Are there any other applicants who would like a deferral or a withdrawal of an application? I see none. Okay. We will then start with the first.
Test 1, 2, 3, test.
We'll start with the first application on our agenda this evening is CAV 087 of 2019 at 228 Tweesdale Crescent. Can everyone hear me? So let me call the application again. It's CAV 087 of 2019 at 228 Tweedsdale Crescent. Good evening.
Hi.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Aidan Turkman, 86 Gerrard Street East, apartment 8B, Toronto.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Turkman. Who is here for application CAV 087 of 2019 at 228 Tweedsdale Crescent? Are you the owner applicant? Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Any other interested parties? I see none. Very well. Mr. Turkman, we're familiar with your application. This is for the internal increase in the floor area. The home is already constructed, correct?
Correct.
Are there any questions of Mr. Turkman or any items of clarification at this time? Mr. Turkman, this is your time. If you'd like to add anything further to your application or do your presentation, you're free to do so.
Well, there's nothing more I can add. Mr. Mano, the owner, the expansion in the interior was done beyond his knowledge. So we are now just rectifying, and we have support letter from signatures from majority of the neighbors around. Other than that,
Have you submitted that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so then the Secretary Treasurer will take it for our records. All right, if there are no items of clarification or questions, we're ready to take this matter into committee. You're satisfied with the conditions that town staff have recommended?
Yes.
Very well. Who is ready to move a motion on this application? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Maybe we can shuffle the one I have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the written submissions, including the staff report, and recognizing that there was a late petition in support of the application, I am satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the 4 tests of the Act, finding that the additional residential floor area is contained solely within the existing envelope of the building, will not contribute negatively towards the massing of the building. As such, I'll put forward a motion of approval. That approval should be subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the floor area being built be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated April 30th, 2019. And the second being that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. And in cases where a permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been completed.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Application CEV 088 of 2019 at 2333 Taunton Road.
Test.
Good evening.
Evening, Madam Chairman. David Nelson, Ruth Victor and Associates, Planning Consultants, 191 Main Street South, Waterdown, Ontario.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Who is here for CAV 088 of 2019 at 2333 Taunton Road? I see none. Mr. Nelson, I understand that this application has a final approval for site plan application already.
Yes, that is correct, Madam Chair.
Very well. Are there any items of clarification from Mr. Nelson at this time with respect to this application? Any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I was wondering, based on the parking surveys that were conducted, they were conducted at off-peak hours for commercial, but it's to be combined?
Yes, the intent is to combine the uses,
So,
the shared use in the,
I guess my question is, would it not have been more revealing to do the proxy site surveys for parking demand when commercial use is within the business hours? Because the first survey was Friday, May 10th, 5 to 10 p.m., Saturday, and then Sunday.
I'm looking at page 6 of the GHT report, Madam Chair. And you'll see there that the parking counts on Saturday, May the 11th, for example, range from 11:30 in the morning to 10:30 in the evening. Parking counts on Sunday from 12 noon till 12 midnight. And that is for one particular site. That is the so-called Ballandry site. Friday, May the 10th, from 5:30 till 10, and the consultant with GHT, Will Marie, has indicated that he thought this was the peak time for the use in that commercial component.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further questions of Mr. Nelson at this time? Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Nelson, could you please, I noted that there was a variety of uses contained within the proxy sites. Both had a mix of medical as well as some general retail. How does the land use permissions compare in the retail units within the proposed site relative to those?
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair. The current site is largely vacant with respect to the commercial components. I do have Mr. Dorson from Brant Haven here. He might be able to help us with respect to the leasing of those spaces.
If you'd like to invite him down, and he can answer Mr.
Yes,
Hardcastle's
thank you,
question, that
Madam
would be
Chair.
great.
Hello. James Dorson, 720 Oval Court, Burlington. At this time, we haven't had any vacancies in the commercial component of the building at this time, so we don't have any leases right now.
Does that answer your question?
Perhaps either Mr. Nelson or maybe I could direct this to staff. The underlying zoning, the MU2, MU4 zoning, how do the permissions for retail uses compare to the proxy sites in terms of the zoning?
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair, they would be identical.
Okay. So the uses would remain the same.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Any further questions of Mr. Nelson at this time? Mr. Nelson, if you have nothing further to add and you're satisfied with the conditions that staff have recommended, we are ready to take this matter into committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very well. Who is ready to move a motion? Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I'm satisfied that the application represents an efficient use of land. I'll also note that there was nobody in opposition to this application, and I would make that approval subject to the conditions requested by staff, that the shared parking be permitted in accordance with the color-coded site plans submitted dated September 14th, and that the approval expire within 2 years. I guess you won't need a building permit. If they don't need a building permit, that the approval expires within 2 years if the proposed scope of the work has not been completed.
Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Your application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I'm just going to leave it
Thank you,
on.
Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Application CAV 089 of 2019 at 153 Pinehurst Drive.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Darren Smith. I'm the agent for Kongzu, the owner at 153 Pinehurst Drive.
Yes. Sorry.
You're too far away from it.
Okay.
It's straining to pick it up, and then it causes feedback as it picks up everything. So
Because it's ringing.
yeah, you have to have it this
Okay.
that far. So
Okay.
closer is better.
Okay. We apologize. Mr. Smith, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Smith, you will have to, I think, take us through your presentation. As you're aware, town staff is not supporting your application, and we do have some letters of I know you have letters of support that you've submitted. If you can just take us through your application, and
Sure.
we'll take it from there.
Certainly, thank you. The application is for a attached garage at the front of an existing house. What the diagram you see in front of us right now is illustrating the existing garage right now here. The existing garage, this house was added onto quite significantly many years ago by the previous owner. My client is wishing to add a garage. The current garage that's there right now does not really fit a car. It barely fits the depth of a legal-sized parking spot, so we are proposing to add an additional two-car garage on the front of the house. The existing garage is really there for storage, and this is where the first variance is being applied for. This is for an oversized garage. What we are, in talking further to my client, willing to do, because this really is meant to be storage more than anything else, is we are willing to, if we can at this time, amend the application to add a wall into the space, in which that would eliminate the need for this variance, because it really just is a storage room. And what we're adding in on the front here is the two-car garage. So when we look at the massing of the garage and the reasons for the variance, it really isn't adding any additional mass because of the oversized garage. But to eliminate the need for the variance, my client is willing to add in this wall, which would then reduce the proposed garage to a 48 square meter garage area, thus not needing that variance if the committee would allow that.
That would take care of variance number 1. How does town
That's
staff feel about that, Mr. Hassan? But we still need the variance number 2 for the projection of the private garage.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't believe my mic's working either at this time, but
Oh.
I'm not entirely sure if there would be a floor area ratio variance as a result of the additional floor area being added with the conversion of the garage. So it would be difficult for me to say without having calculations done and confirming with zoning staff at this time.
It seems to me if you're not going to seek a deferral, we would proceed with it as is. I mean, we have dealt with applications where we have extra floor area in the garage,
Yes.
and it's not visible from the streetscape, so it doesn't.
I wanted to put that out there as
Yeah.
something that my client was willing to offer. So if I may, the second variance that we're applying for is the garage projection. Now, the reason why we're proposing this is two reasons. One, the actual site itself lends itself to, if you can see just in this diagram here, under normal circumstances in a road in which the planning department was talking about the reasons for this variance, where other developments in the neighborhood have complied with this zoning bylaw because the street is straight. The houses run in a line and there is some continuity and form within the architecture. In this particular case, the house is located, this particular house here, on the bend and a curve in a road, where the existing house, which is quite skewed to the road already, adding in the addition, the garage, as you can see in this particular case, parallel to the road, is actually not any farther forward to the street than the actual addition of the house, the main body of the house. Where I'm going with this is basically stating that the curve of the road is actually really not enhancing the garage projection as if the road, unless the road was straight. So we felt that by adding this garage in the front under these specific circumstances, it made sense. With the side yard setback, because the one side of the house here is lined up with the mudroom door, to get a minimum two-car garage in here, we had to project into the side yard setback. Now, the existing garage already projects into that side yard setback. So what we tried to do is maintain the same depth at the rear of the house and the same front yard setback as what the existing garage was, giving us the very minimum of a two-car garage. So if you drive by the street and look at how the character of the street is, the trees, which help distinguish or disguise the overall impact of the garage, the fact that the street is on a curve or bend in the road and its proximity to the other neighbors in the house, it really does not have that mass or impact on the adjacent neighbors as if it was on a straight line in the road. So we feel that under the circumstances, we feel that this application actually does work with the way that the Planning Act is talking about, and I feel that it's something that can be supported.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Smith at this time? Did I remember to canvass the room? No, I didn't. Who is here for application CAV 089 of 2019 at 153 Pinehurst Drive? Okay, in the commotion of the mics, I neglected to do so. So there's no one here that will speak to or against that application, but we do have all the letters of support that you've submitted.
Thank you.
Are there, oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Are you here in opposition or in support? In opposition. Would you like to address the committee, sir? If you do, you have to come down and provide your name and address, and then we were happy to hear you.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good
It
evening.
is my
Your
first
name and
time
address?
to have such a
You-
hearing.
Before
My
we
English
start,
not so good. I try to speak and slowly and try to catch what you mean. My neighbor of the
but I don't mean to interrupt you. Before you start, I need your name and your address.
okay, so my name is Haibing Han, and my address is 149 Pinehurst Drive, a neighbor of the application.
Okay, very well. I see you right here.
Yeah.
Are you leasing or you own?
I
Because we
own-
have-
I owner.
You are the owner.
I owner, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Hang.
Yes, I checked the application, and I think the garage, the renewed will be too close to my property. Before, minimum is 4.6 meter. Now, only 1.9 meter, too close to my property. And the second, and the garage, I think, protruding too much to the street. That will be the street, the landscape, and the view will be broken. So I don't agree.
Okay. What portion of your home is next to the garage that's being proposed?
My side or my house?
Yes, the
My
side.
side is south. No. North.
Okay.
North to the and the neighbor.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Hang at this time, or items of clarification? I see none. Okay. Have you said everything that you would like to say to the committee? Because then we will invite Mr. Smith to reply to your concerns.
I think maybe I prepare because I told you my English is not so good.
No, but we understood everything that you had to say.
Yeah.
You're concerned about the space between the two
Yeah,
homes and the protrusion to the
It was street too
streetscape.
much, and also the too near my property.
And it's close to your
Yeah,
property.
yeah. To 1.9 is too close.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Thank
also,
you.
I think such the renovation, I think will broken the whole view of the street.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
according
you.
to my view. Okay.
Thank you for your submission.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. I apologize that we did not get an opportunity to talk to our neighbor. The majority of the houses in that neighborhood surrounding the house are actually rented out or leased, so we weren't able to talk to actual owners on the property. The existing garage that we are proposing is no closer to the existing property line than what the existing is. That's why we're tapering the house and the addition as it is in line with, because the building is skewed, so it's allowing us to you know, and I needed to get a slightly wider garage, but we kept it back in so that we were basically in line with the existing garage as it is. I understand the concerns, however, with the proximity of the neighbor's house. His house actually projects the garage quite forward in this particular case. We need this little additional space here, and I've tried to keep the garage pulled back so it is less impactful based on the street line. It is also a dead-end road, so really the streetscape at the end of this street is somewhat minimal.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Smith at this time? Okay, I see none. Mr. Smith, if you're satisfied, we'll take the matter into committee.
Thank you.
Who would like to start the discussion? Mr. Tofsky, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I can't personally get past that the intent of this bylaw is not to create or perpetuate what I'll call a garage-scape environment. So I cannot come to grips with this application meeting the intent of the bylaw. Intent of the bylaw is not to have a garage in front of the house, and this application is asking for exactly that. Mr. Smith, I do appreciate your comments on the curve of the road coming in the one direction. I think it works against you in the other direction in that you're looking at a significant wall that's very prominent and very much in front of the neighbor's house in that particular area. And Madam Chair, I recognize there's both support and opposition. I tend to agree with the resident that spoke that this does have an unacceptable impact, and concur with the opinions of staff. I would recommend the application be denied.
Okay, is there a discussion on this application? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't spend too much time. I'm just going to echo some of the comments of Mr. Tulowski. The provisions of the zoning bylaw are established to prevent such matters from occurring, and I tend to agree that the visual impact of the projection is significant in the one direction, and I will be supporting the motion on the floor.
Okay, Mr. Hardcastle, any further discussion? Okay, so the recommendation is to deny the application. All those in support? Okay, the application has been denied.
Thank you.
CAV 091 of 2019 at 449 Bellwood Avenue.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm John Wilmot.
Good evening, Mr. Wilmot.
I live at the residence.
Who is here for a CAV 091 of 2019 at 449 Bellwood Avenue? I see none. Go ahead, Mr. Wilmot. This is for your accessory structure in the side yard.
Would you like a presentation?
I understand that this is with respect to a technical variance. If there are no items of clarification or questions of Mr. Wilmot at this time, we can take this matter into committee if you're satisfied with the conditions that town staff have allocated.
Madam Chair, thank you. Having conducted my site visit and having taken into account the staff's report and noting that there were no comments or letters in support or opposition with regards to this application. Sorry, there was one written opposition. I do find that I will support the application as applied for, noting that it does meet the tests of the Planning Act, and I would also like to include the two conditions noted in the staff report, that the accessory building be permitted in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated June 28, 2019, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Are there any discussion comments on this application? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Application CAV 092 of 2019 at 146 Church Street.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dennis Robinson. I live at 265 East 16th Street in Hamilton.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Who is here for application CAV 092 of 2019 at 146 Church Street? You are here in opposition or in support? Opposition. Very well. We'll give you a chance to address the committee. Mr. Robinson, go ahead, sir, and take us through your application for the benefit of the members of the audience, and then we'll invite the neighbor to speak to the committee.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're proposing to create a patio in the parking lot in the back side of our business. We are located on Lakeshore Road, so we're trying to, we're proposing to put a patio in the backyard, in the back of the business, to alleviate some of the, to help our business a little bit as we move through the reconstruction of Lakeshore Road. We plan on creating a patio that's 4.9 by 5.4 meters in width and length. It's approximately 26.46 meters in size. We will have a 48-inch high fence that will wrap around the patio, and we'll cover the parking lot with plywood or a good something that will be sturdy to be able to support chairs and tables. Okay. One thing the way we look at this, it's right now we're taking up 2 parking spaces where this patio will be, but we're also going to recess the patio 30 centimeters or approximately 1 foot inside of these 2 parking spaces. Okay, to help with the foot traffic that does go by the business on a couple sides of the building. If I could put this. I have a photograph of it here.
If you move it up a little, it should project. Yeah, you're just not there yet. There we go.
There we go. Anyways, yeah, if you look at to the far right, the two parking spaces are on the right-hand side next to the garbage containers here. Sorry about that. And our plan, like I said, is to recess the fencing 1 foot or 30 centimeters inside of the parking spaces, and I call them yellow parking pylons, for lack of better words, but these it will be recessed in 1 foot also from there, actually improving the walkway, enhancing the walkway, because right now it's very tight to walk through in between the building and any car that is parked in those parking spaces. We are also, our plan is for our hours of operation for that space would be 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. So it would be closed early, and we're planning on it's going to be a quiet atmosphere. It's just an extension of our dining room, and if you've been to our business, we serve quite a number of families, and it's very calm, not loud, ruckus sort of business. And that's kind of what I have right now for you.
Perfect. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Robinson at this time? Mr. Tulowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, the drawings you provided, not to scale and no context really with the surrounding buildings, the staircase, the walkway you spoke of, I'm having difficulty really trying to understand how this is going to operate. when you put the parking in here, what's gonna happen to the garbage containers that are in the picture? How people, one, the comment from the resident speaks to access to the building. I'm looking at 2 sets of stairs, but I really can't tell from your drawing really how they relate to what you're proposing.
Right, okay, well, I'll do my best to clarify for you, sir. So the parking, currently if there's vehicles parked in those 2 parking spaces, you can barely move around them, to be honest with you. They'll be pulled right up to the yellow pylons and they'll fill those spaces. And it's very, actually, being in that business numerous times, it's very difficult to walk by on either side, front of the vehicle or the side of the vehicle. So, I mean, recessing the patio, the fencing, if you look at our white line here, we're gonna recess it in 1 foot and 1 foot in at the back of the parking space and 1 foot in at the front of the parking space on both of them. And that'll give us our square footage in there. It'll also create a better walkway between the garbage containers, which we will be moving, shifting to the right here to enhance the area a little bit, to make it a little bit nicer for people sitting there to enjoy a meal. And yeah, the fence will also be recessed, so there'll be better walking space through there. I hope that helps clarify that a little bit.
Mr. Hassan, I actually have a question of planning staff. You commented in your report that you will enter into an agreement with town staff will enter into agreement with Mr. Robinson and the establishment. What is the alternative while the lakeshore is being constructed? Have you entered in such agreement with any other patrons on lakeshore, or do you intend to in the future? Is that going to be the standard practice?
To you, Madam Chair, if the committee can recall, a number of meeting cycles ago, there was another application very similar to this one for proposed patio. So it's on an ongoing basis on demand by the actual restaurant owners. The town is not actively going out to seek applications to be submitted, but if the restaurant owners intend to have the patios in operation during the construction season, then that's when the agreements would be entered into if applications for the variances were to be approved.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Ms. Murray.
Madam Chair, for the town staff, the second condition cited in the notes indicate the patio should not be in operation between the hours of 10 p.m. and 11 a.m. That doesn't jive with the indicated 9 p.m. closure. So that's different. The other thing is, if I recall correctly, the one that was withdrawn previously, can you please clarify that bylaw officers didn't feel that they could enforce some of these conditions?
To you, Madam Chair, staff are amenable if the applicant is agreeable to changing the hours of operation to 9 p.m. to 11 a.m. In terms of enforceability of the conditions, I didn't have a conversation with bylaw enforcement staff in relation to this particular application, but they were comments that were in relation to the previous application, and they are enforceable in relation to the wording of the agreement that would be registered with the property owner.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further questions or items of clarification? Okay, Mr. Robinson, I'll invite you to take a seat for a few minutes until the neighbor has had the chance to speak to the committee.
No problem.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I live at 155 Lakeshore Road East in Unit 5. So I actually live right behind.
So you're the white building that we see in the
No, I'm actually
pictures?
the staircase going. So there's a staircase, sorry.
Mr. Robinson, would you mind leaving that picture up there? Yeah, perfect. If you just push it up in the farthest corner of that white.
Oh.
There we go. A little bit farther up. There we go.
So I'm actually with the staircase right there. That's my entrance, coming in and out.
Oh, so where's Mr. Robinson's
So-
entrance?
Mr. Robinson entrance is actually right beside me going downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah. So my biggest concern is during the nighttime. I work during the day. I do park my vehicle there some nights because I do night shifts. My biggest concern is the loud noise, because I have skylights and I can hear the foot traffic in the restaurant, which I don't mind, it's a business. But for me to hear people outside of my back patio, because I do leave my patio open. That's my main concern, that I don't want foot traffic when I just want to go outside, have a smoke, because I am a smoker, and them just like giving me like my privacy, please.
Okay, understood. Sorry, what was your name?
Marina Hurst.
Hurst. Ms. Hurst. Are there any questions of Ms. Hurst?
Not at the moment.
You have one for the staff. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Hardcastle, you had a question?
Just waiting for the microphone. Is your objection is in general to the location of
Just
the patio?
yeah, because I actually live underneath the restaurant. They actually were talking to me about putting a patio. They actually came up to me and discussed it personally. I said it's a good idea and a bad idea, but it's a bad idea because of garbages. That's why they don't know what to do because of the garbages.
Do you see that there would be anything that could be done with respect to this patio that would ameliorate or address your concerns?
I just don't want a patio back there, to be honest. I'd rather have it a parking lot, and I'm not even too sure if they got even city approval to get the permits for the time being. And if it is a short term, like, wait for the rest. Like, we're all struggling. I work down there. I work in a salon right on Lakeshore, and I see construction every day. Like, it is what it is at the end of the day, but it's going to look fantastic after 2 years. So be patient. That's what I ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ray, you had the question of town staff.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm wondering, in the pictures that we see, there appears to be residential below. How much residential do we know is above the restaurant?
Through you, Madam Chair, unfortunately, I don't have that information here.
These white and gray buildings that we see, I think that's the question, right? How much residential is in here?
Actually, right, one moment.
Sorry, on top of the Works building, there's approximately 5 residents, and one of them is one of my neighbors. We talk daily.
Okay, you're talking about the Works building.
The Works building, yeah.
We're talking about these buildings, Mr. Hassan.
So I know one of them is actually a business, and the other one is a spa.
Okay,
And the building that I live in is 5 apartments and 2 restaurants underneath.
okay. Thank you for your clarification. Do you have anything further to ask?
That's all, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, Mr. Robinson, you are welcome to come back and address the committee and address the concerns that the neighbor has.
Okay.
And we
Thank you.
can.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I did change my document that we be closed. First of all, it was 10 p.m., but it is actually 9 p.m. Sorry about that. I should have got you a fresh document. But that would be our intentions, is to close at 9 o'clock. And I just would like to emphasize that there will be no music, so it's not going to be a loud area, and it's not a place where people go to drink and get a little bit crazy. It's more of it's just an eating establishment that serves families and such. It'll be closed. Like I said, it'll be finished by 9 o'clock and closed up for the night. And we'll do our very best to continue to run a well-respected business in the community of Oakville.
The patio that you used to have in the front of the restaurant,
Yes.
that one closed at the same time?
I believe we were open till our regular business hours, which would be 10 PM and 11 PM on the weekends.
Okay. This is a little bit unorthodox, but Ms. Hurst, how did you feel about the patio in the front? I mean, if it was established in the same way?
It was mixed feelings.
But the difference is they were allowed by the bylaw that they can have it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, this patio is a temporary, somewhat of a solution to help our business out. And I mean, if approved, we basically have a couple of months of business anyways, or maybe 2.5 months of business and that sort of thing, so.
So you would have like roughly, what, 4 or 5 tables out there?
4 or 5, yeah, no more than, I'm gonna say 16 seats. 16
Okay.
seats, yeah.
Okay.
I just have one more question. It's actually blocking the delivery for their food that comes in every Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Well, I think that all these matters are going to be directed to town staff, who will enter into an agreement with Mr. Robinson and have everything handled. Am I correct to assume that, Mr. Hassan?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that'd be correct. That's my understanding through discussion with internal staff.
Okay, very well. I did things a little bit out of order today, but I just needed to have these questions answered. Are there any further questions of Mr. Robinson? We are ready to take this matter into committee. Mr. Robinson, if you're satisfied, we have all the conditions that town staff has recommended, but we also know that you're entering into a detailed agreement with the town staff. If you're satisfied, we can take this matter into committee right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who would like to start the ball rolling on this application?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do recognize what the neighbors' comments are, noting though that they are one of the only people that are out speaking against verbally this application. There was also 2 letters of opposition. I recognize that noise sometimes is a concern, and noting that the applicant is reducing that the patio shall not be in operation between the hours of 9 p.m. to 11 a.m. So that's an hour difference in time. I am of the opinion that this application and what has been applied for is a result of the construction that is taking place in our downtown Lakeshore area, and that the businesses there are trying to continue their viability. So I recognize that this application is a result of that. So I'm actually going to move in support of this application, having conducted my site visit and noting the staff's comments with the conditions as indicated in the staff report. Do I need to read them?
There's 5 of them?
Yes.
Yes. You can.
Do I need to read them?
Yes.
Okay, so that the patio. Check. That the patio and barriers be built in general accordance with the plans submitted by the applicant. And 2, the patio shall not be in operation between the hours of, we're going to say 9 p.m. to 11 a.m. And 3, that the patio shall not have any excessive music or other sound devices in operation. And 4, that the patio shall not have any excessive illumination or other light projection devices in operation. And 5, that the patio shall be removed no later than October 31st, 2019. If required.
Okay, is there a discussion on this recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have no objection to the concept of what's being proposed here. I just don't think this has been thought out well enough at this point. The materials provided just don't allow me to be satisfied that the conflict between the commercial and residential uses and proper access is going to be maintained for these people. I recognize that this establishment has a patio out front regularly, and that coexists with the residential uses, but this one is actually interfering with the access to the residential, where the one in the front at normal times is not. So while not opposed to the concept, believe we should be trying to help the businesses downtown, I just can't support this at this time, given what seems to be too many conflicting uses in this corner.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. I actually had a comment, and I don't know where we can put it in, but from the letter that we received from one of the neighbors, there is a concern with the path and the stairs being greasy, and there's danger there. I've been to your establishment several times, and I do recognize that the surfaces do get greasy sometimes. I'm just wondering, I have to reiterate what Mr. Talowski is saying in terms of there's so many things and elements and uses in that corner that I'd like it to be a little bit more thought out, and for the safety of staff and tenants as well, going up and down those stairs. So I don't know where that should go. Mr. Hassan, if you want to take a note of that, if that could be something that you put into the agreement, if there's some way we can reiterate that point. Any further comments or questions? Ms. Maria, I saw you reaching.
Thank you to everyone for coming to speak, and again, I feel for the businesses in downtown Oakville, but I also appreciate that as a tenant, what you bargained for and signed up for was a patio in the front, not necessarily a patio in the back, and so those conditions of living and living arrangements have changed, not only for you but for the other tenants. So to that effect, I cannot support the motion at this time.
All right. So the motion is to approve the application with set conditions that were read into record. All those in support of the application? Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Your application has been denied. Oh, sorry. I apologize. That's the wrong procedure. There's an oversight on my part. So that application has failed. The motion to approve the application has failed. We need to make another motion. Mr. Talowski, go ahead. Thank you for catching that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This may seem uncharacteristic, but I'm actually going to move that we defer this application and give the applicant a chance to go back with staff and see if they can come up with a better solution, and would encourage the applicant to speak with the neighbor on the way out as well and try to get the neighbors on board.
I agree with you. That's fine. I think that's a good middle ground. You don't lose the entire application fees, but there is an application deferral fee, so you should be aware of that. No? You're deferring it? Okay. Is there a discussion on that recommendation? Who? Okay. So Mr. Talowski, am I to understand you're moving the deferral?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move the application be deferred, and given that if it's supported, it's the committee making the deferral, I would also waive any deferral fee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Talowski. All those in support of the motion to defer this application? The application has been deferred. So you'll have a chance to speak to town staff and rework your application, and then come before us when you're ready. And the Secretary Treasurer will let you know when the next available time is.
Okay.
Very well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, application CAV 038 of 2019 at 2092 Duncan Road, and this was deferred from March the 26th. Hello, Mr. Capper.
Hello, Madam Chair. Thank you. For the record, my name is David Capper with Glenn Schnarr & Associates, and our address is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R 3K6. We have been retained through Steve Hamlin Architect on behalf of the owners of the property as their authorized agents.
Thank you for that clarification, because I do have Mr. Hamlin on record as the agent. Who is here for application CAV 038 of 2019 at 2092 Duncan Road? You're the owners or you are neighbors?
Just interested neighbors.
Interested neighbors. Would you like to address the committee or you're just here to listen? Okay, if you change your mind, just signal. Very well. Go ahead, Mr. Capper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of brevity, I'd like to make a very short and different presentation. Forgive me, I had technical issues this evening.
Oh, we're going to miss out on the PowerPoint today.
Forgive me. We're going archaic here. Madam Chair, the property in question at 20092 Duncan Road is this property right here. It's one lot to the north of the bend or the curve, if you will, in Duncan Road. This is somewhat of an unusual curve in the road, given its, as I call it, the bulb. And that has an interesting effect on the front yard setbacks for the properties that are located on the east side of Duncan Road and north of the bend in the road. So that does create some unique situations with respect to that consistent front yard setback that is often desirable from a planning perspective. In terms of the variance that's before you this evening, I've simply marked up the plans that have been submitted just to clarify exactly where the front yard setback has been drawn to. What you'll note in the red hatching here, we have the existing building, which is set back at 9.78 meters. That's the existing setback. As you'll know, the zoning bylaw has a provision in it for this zone that allows for the existing setback minus 1 meter, which brings it to 8.78 meters, being the existing as-of-right setback for the front yard on this particular lot. You'll note that in the blue line here, what I've shown, that is the front facade, the main front facade of the building, which occupies a little over 50% of the front facade. And I've highlighted over here that is 8.77 meters. So it's 1 centimeter shy of what's permitted as of right. And then shown in the green line here is the projection of the front porch and the two pilasters that support the front, the garage projection, and then the garage over here. And if I can add one other quick visual image, and sorry, just for clarification, the front yard setback that's being requested of 7.22 meters is this distance from the front yard to the closest point of the projection, which is the covered porch projection. And just very quickly, what I've done on the elevations is I've highlighted the areas where these projections are. So we have the covered entry porch over here, the garage facade over here, and then a small portion of the second story, which is projected over the first story in that area. So although the variance before you seeks a reduction of 2.56 meters in the permitted, the maximum permitted front yard, sorry, the minimum required front yard setback, it is required on a technical basis for the vast majority of this portion of the front facade. So that's the application before you this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Capper. Are there any items of clarifications or questions for Mr. Capper at this time? I see none. Sir, have we answered all your questions? Are you satisfied? Very well. Okay. Mr. Capper, if you are ready for us to take this matter into committee, we're happy to do so.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the written materials and the deputation by the applicant, or the agent for the applicant, I should say, I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to two standard conditions. I would note that the comments from the agent were compelling in terms of the impact of the variance and the minimization efforts that were undertaken to reduce the impacts. The two conditions would be that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawing submitted by the applicant, and the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been completed.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved. Thank you
very much. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Okay, the last item on our agenda this evening is CAV 070 of 2019 at 1312 Hillhurst Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the Maws, the owners of 1312 Hillhurst. I was in front of...
Are these the owners?
The owners,
Okay,
yes.
very well. I just need to canvass the room to make sure that there's no one
Yes.
here other
Yes.
than the owners.
Okay. So I was in front of this committee in May and asking for a deferral as we wanted to work with staff. Staff had some comments regarding the application. They wanted and had suggested, and we concurred, we rotated the house slightly. When we were here in May, we only had the one variance, and that was for floor ratio. And we rotated the house slightly, which I can understand the reason for it, so that we line up as the road is more on a curve. Now the front facade of the home will now line up with the curve of the road. Now, what this has done is this has triggered two variances. And I'll just show you very minimal variances. So on the east side, we now have a small variance of 3.56, and on the west side, we are asking for 3.26. And as you can see, we have rotated the house so that it is more in line with the curvature of the road. The house and the siting of the house and the building envelope is proportionate to the size of the lot. Our floor area ratio that we are asking for includes an area in the garage as it's above 6 meters. However, it is inhabitable. It's an inhabitable area. So that area is included in the floor ratio. If we remove that portion, we will have 31, we would be asking for 31.5%. So in effect, we are asking for an additional 32.26 square meters of habitable space. I believe the proposed variances will facilitate a reinvestment in a manner that respects the plan context and existing built form of the neighborhood. And the variances are minor in nature and technical and will be compatible to surrounding homes, and this application does meet the 4 tests.
Very well, thank you, Ms. Evangelista. The interior side reduction is only for a small portion. That is the protrusion that you have there, right? The
correct.
Okay.
A very
Because we do
small
have
portion.
one letter of opposition from the immediate neighbor to the east, who is not
Right.
here, but has voiced their objection as to the interior side reduction?
So I did speak to Peter, who is the neighbor, and I explained that we had to rotate the house per direction of, like I mentioned, planning and urban design, as we wanted to work with the city. And in actual fact, the rotation of the home, as I mentioned, does line up with the curvature. So as you are traveling along the road, you will see the front elevation of the home much clearer. Now, on the east side, the gentleman that wrote in the letter of opposition, he's on this side, on the east side. And we, at our smallest portion, we're asking for 3.56. And there's only approximately not even 2 feet that we are asking for that minor variance. And the 2 side yards combined equal 8.09 meters, which is 26 feet, 0.54. So, and as you will see, it is a heavily treed lot that will remain. This is the letter of opposition that you received, and these are the trees in between the 2 homes that will remain.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any further questions of Mr. Evangelista at this time? I see none. If you're satisfied, we're ready to take this matter into committee.
I am, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Very well. Ms. Murray?
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that the staff is in support of. Also having taken into account the comments presented by the applicant today, very clear, thank you. As well as the submissions from the public, and noting that there was one written objection against the variance. I'm satisfied that the minor variance meets all 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance subject to the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations revision number 2 dated May 15th, 2019. I believe those are the most current plans. And that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members, staff. Thank you.
Okay. We have meeting minutes to confirm for July 9th. Who would like to move those meetings? Minutes. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. And a motion for adjournment, Mr. Hardcastle at 8:09. Thank you. We are adjourned.